Hi, ladies and gentlemen, those in between and beyond, welcome, to YouTube. So, this channel is supposed to be about sim racing, motorsport. I played Trackmania, and at some point down the line, I would like to branch out, into other genres, maybe fighting games. But for now, it's focused mostly on GT Sport, Assetto Corsa Competizione, things like that. Um, so this is such a hard video to make. So Ermin was a creator that I've been watching basically since Automobilista 2 went into early access. It's well produced. It sounds good. I like his content. So this video is going to be really difficult to watch for me. I made it about see, it's 8 minutes long. I made it about halfway through before I turned it off and said, "Okay, I need to talk about this." So, why Formula 1 is the pinnacle of hypocrisy. This is a really bad argument, and I just want to preface this with two things. One, this is not meant as an attack, so this is not a personal or a kind of like jab. And two, I don't know Ermin's political opinions, and they're not relevant for talking about this video. I don't care whether or not I'm assuming it's he, him, if I'm wrong, that he's left or right or center. I don't care if he's conservative or liberal or neither. That doesn't matter, because the argument that he's making, at least in the first half of the video, we'll see if it changes, is get your politics out of my motorsports. That's an argument that we haven't heard since Gamergate. Remember, get your politics out of my video games? This is not a good argument, but let's hear him. Let's hear it. Take it away.
Hey legends, and welcome back to the channel where we're tackling some real life issues for a change. Over the past several weeks, Formula 1 has become increasingly political. This follows a
Okay, so right off the bat, this idea that Formula 1 is suddenly becoming political is bullshit. Formula 1 has been political forever. Okay? And this man here is the whole reason that Formula 1 has been political for a long time. Okay? Formula 1 is the highest form of motorsport in terms of prestige, whether or not it's got the best racing, which, I mean, DRS, come on. But that's not what's important. What's important is that Formula 1 has always been political. There's always been politics. I remember back when they were considering putting China on the calendar, when they were putting Azerbaijan on the calendar, there was a lot of political conversations about, is it ethical to hold races in those countries? Russia has come about basically every time there's a Russian GP about whether or not it's ethical to hold a race in those countries. Politics didn't suddenly merge into F1 because BLM is now societally acceptable. That's not what happened. So let's keep going, but this idea that Formula 1 is just now becoming political is not a thing.
trend of politicization and kowtowing ever since Liberty Media took the reins in late 2016. One of the notable effects of this was the removal of grid girls in 2018 to coincide with so-called new societal norms. In spite
I'm not going to take a long time on this one, but if you have a problem with grid girls going away, I'm sorry. I'm just here for the motorsport. I don't need that.
Out of protests by many of the affected themselves. More recently, the platform has become all about the increase of diversity in motorsport. This is championed by some in the organisation much more loudly than others, and at present appears to be causing a bit of a rift in the sport. This is a very interesting platform for Formula One to run on, given that.
Okay, so I'm actually going to go back because maybe some people don't know about this.
This is loudly than others, and at present.
So this was reported on. It was made a big deal in news media. Basically, some drivers are kneeling. Some drivers are not. And when they did it for the second race, they cut away because they faced backlash from not everyone kneeling, so they didn't show anyone kneeling. Important to note here, I think, is that Lewis Hamilton's shirt is not the FIA official End Racism. It's a Black Lives Matter shirt. And Lewis Hamilton was told by higher-ups that he should not wear a Kaepernick helmet. So when he's saying it's causing a rift in the sport, what rift? The rift between people who support ending racism and people who don't? Because if that's not the rift, what is it? Right? So,
appears to be causing a bit of a rift in the sport. This is a very interesting platform for Formula One to run on, given that by definition it houses a sub 1% hyper-elite subset of the population.
This is true.
Their calling card for this initiative is #WeRaceAsOne. This, again, is very interesting, as the estimated cost to get a young driver through karting and into the feeder leagues of Formula One runs anywhere between 3 million and 8 million euro.
This is completely irrelevant to the point about politics in Formula One. If what you're saying is that only a certain group of people can afford to be in motorsport, that's true.
Those who enter Formula One are by necessity multi-millionaires already, or at the very least have secured the patronage or sponsorship.
Okay, this one is really bad. I don't know why he decided to say people who are millionaires already and then put Lewis Hamilton on the screen. Anyone who knows anything about how Lewis Hamilton got to where he is knows that he wasn't a millionaire and his family wasn't rich when he started driving. So, I mean, like, this is a cool little chart. We've got, you know, Monster Energy, Mercedes-Benz, all these companies putting their logos on his jumpsuit. But again, like, motorsport is expensive, and I'm not denying that. Motorsport, especially a sport like Formula One, where you have to go through the European Karting League, and then you have to hope to be picked up by one of the feeder teams, like the Red Bull Young Driver Program or the Ferrari Young Driver Program. And then, after that, you have to do well in F3 and F2, and then you could end up like George Russell, where you end up winning, but because you were in the wrong feeder program, you end up at Williams despite your talent, right? So, Formula One is unfair by its nature in an economic sense, and Formula One is trying to kind of curb that. But that's been true forever. So why make a video about inclusiveness now?
Of multi-million dollar entities. This by definition makes Formula One an exclusive, not inclusive club. While this video is not here to cast aspersions as to the validity or invalidity of assorted political movements, it is here to track the consistency and legitimacy of Formula One to make grandiose statements through its platform.
Formula One does not need any reason to say or do anything. It is a corporation like anything else. If doing something means that it will see higher profit margins, it will do that. So if going to China and Russia for races, despite the questionable treatment of their people, makes more money, then they'll do it. If supporting anti-racist movements and going as far as to say we race as one and putting the rainbow logo on the cars makes them more money, then they're going to do it. They don't need a reason.
Let's break down for a moment what motorsport fundamentally is and what constitutes its viewership.
I have no idea what this section of the video is supposed to mean.
And so Farina comes in to receive the checkered flag, the winner at an average speed of 90.95 miles an hour.
Ultimately, it arose as a pursuit where a conglomerate of wealthy individuals wanted to codify their love for racing. At some point down the line, sponsorship and manufacturers became involved directly, and at the highest tiers, motorsports became a business. For the average viewer, seeing a race at the track or on television is an opportunity to escape from the mundane grind and attach themselves to a short-lived, exciting experience vicariously.
Okay, so this is the get your politics out of my video games argument from Gamergate that everyone should know is bullshit. If you're uncomfortable seeing We Race as One and Black Lives Matter on Lewis Hamilton's helmet, is it because it takes you out of the experience? Or is there another reason? Because if all it does is take you out of the experience, I'm sorry. Ads sometimes take me out of the experience. Sometimes the English commentators like to talk about whatever the hell they want. Being taken out of the experience is and how you feel is not an argument for why Formula One should not be pushing for greater inclusivity in its teams' driver lineups.
They follow Formula One for the love of competition and racing. Generally, not to be lectured to about how to think and act.
Okay, so let's read this. They have got to do a better job. Lewis Hamilton hits out at F1 chiefs as drivers are rushed through taking the knee before a Hungarian GP. Six-time champion accuses the sport of not giving drivers platform to protest. Lewis Hamilton has hit out at F1 chiefs. Drivers only had short spaces of time to take the knee before national anthems. Antonio Giovinazzi forgot to wear his End Racism t-shirt. Hamilton said it was such a rush us getting out of the car and taking. Okay, so from what I can tell, what Lewis Hamilton is complaining about is that they didn't do a good job of actually making effort to make this a thing. And instead, they just said, all right, everybody, we're ending racism. Come on, get in the front. And what Lewis Hamilton seems to be saying is, there was not enough time for us to talk about how we should do this and what we should do. So I don't know how this is lecturing you about how to think. Again, all the FIA is saying, all Formula One is saying is end racism, be more inclusive, and they've got the little rainbow, right? That's probably a reference to LGBTQ, right? Is that okay?
What's particularly fascinating about Formula One and some of its drivers taking on this self-appointed responsibility, furthermore bullying those who choose to stay apolitical, is I've yet to find it.
Oh. What was that?
Slippery slope. The assertion
Whoa,
is that
whoa,
they
whoa.
start to walk down a very slippery slope. Choose to stay apolitical is that they start to walk down a very
Okay, so Lewis Hamilton unhappy with some F1 drivers' complicit silence on racism. If asked whether or not you support measures to end racism, you say nothing. You didn't say, yes, I support those measures. Again, this idea that the drivers are staying apolitical not saying anything is a political statement. Because everything that happens for political reasons. So this idea that like, oh, yeah, no, Lewis Hamilton, the only black Formula One driver, is criticizing other people for just not getting involved. No, he's criticizing them because not getting involved means that they don't care. And not caring is bad. I don't know how else to put it. If you're silent when asked, do you want to stop bigotry, you're complicit in bigotry. And this idea that it's a slippery slope. Slippery slope into what? Everyone not being bigots? Everyone not being racist? I don't know.
Slippery slope.
If we end racism too fast, what happens?
The assertion is that diversity is under threat systemically, and that it's every individual's responsibility to speak about it. So let's run with that.
That is a straw man. That is not true. Not every single individual needs to speak out it. But public figures, like Formula One drivers, should probably say stuff about it.
Precepts. If it's indeed every individual's responsibility to champion
It's not.
injustice, here are just a number of things presently happening in the world. The Chinese government is oppressing its Uyghur Muslim minority through forced sterilization, abortion, imprisonment in internment camps, and even organ harvesting. Saudi Arabia, one of the United States' staunchest allies in the Middle East, outlaws same-sex relationships and regularly issues out death sentences involving stoning and beheading.
What does this have to do?
Texaco, aka Chevron, dumped toxic waste of an unimaginable magnitude in the Amazonian rainforests, and in spite of decades of litigation by the Amazonian peoples, have never truly been held accountable for it. Africa currently leads the modern world in slavery.
What are we doing? Why? Okay. So the argument here is that you can't criticize racism because slavery is happening other places. You cannot talk about one bad thing because you're not talking about all the bad things. That is not how this works. Again, Formula One is a corporation. They don't need a reason to do anything, but they're doing this thing because they think that the more of their customers, right? Brands that want to buy sponsorships are going to be more interested in buying a sponsorship on an F1 car if Formula One takes a stance against these things because their consumer base takes a stance against racism like that. Simply saying,
but actually, there's other problems in the world, and if you don't talk about those things, then you are a bigot.
That's not an argument. All you're saying is that yes, these other things are happening. Formula One is talking about ending racism. That's it. That's all they're talking about.
Slavery. Armed conflict, state-sponsored forced labor,
Oh my God,
and
we're
forced
still on
marriages
about this.
account for most of the estimated 10 million Africans who are going for hours on Earth while laboring in squalor. So on and so forth. I could keep this going for hours. There are injustices happening across the world at this very moment, which are several orders of magnitude higher than the ones which take political center stage here in the West.
It doesn't matter the order of magnitude or your perceived order of magnitude of the problem. That doesn't matter. They can talk about whatever they want.
West.
We're still going! Oh my God, yes, other bad things are happening. This has nothing to do with racism.
Why does Formula One not kneel for LGBT rights in Saudi Arabia? Why do they not boycott the Chinese?
Oh, God. Okay. You hear this one from conservatives all the time. They'll tell you, like, okay, like I said, I don't know whether or not this person is a conservative.
Rights in Saudi Arabia.
I don't know whether or not they are, but you hear this from conservatives over here in America all the time that, well, you support gay rights, but you also support Muslims. But did you know that Muslim majority countries do not support gay rights? What does Vosh always say? Instead of making arguments, they just vaguely gesture at, what's the word? At hypocrisy. That's what they do. When you can't make an argument, you just vaguely gesture like, you support Muslim, and you also support gay people. But did you know a lot of Muslims don't like gay people? Furious. It's okay. I can support two groups of people. Not all Muslims hate gay people. Again, like even if there was hypocrisy, okay, which I think is ultimately going to be the argument of this video. I haven't finished watching it, but I think even if there was hypocrisy, that doesn't matter. Formula One saying we race as one and gesturing towards LGBT rights and outright saying explicitly end racism, and the F1 teams like Mercedes who are making an active effort to broaden the scope of their team, I think is a good thing. Is it going to change anything? Probably not. Is it going to like help fix racism? No. I mean, their slogan is a little much. Is it actually going to end racism? Probably not. But does it do anyone any harm that it's there? No. Unless, of course, you don't think racism should end.
Arabia. Why do they not boycott the Chinese Grand Prix on account of the country's authoritarian, barbaric practices toward
Because they're a corporation
human life?
and all they care about is making money.
Why do they not kneel for the United States, a country which has spent half a century building its global empire on the backs of the impoverished third world? Why do they not boycott
Because
the
they're
Abu
a
Dhabi Grand Prix,
corporation.
given the country's unimaginable excess, waste, and poor treatment of its migrant workers? This slope.
Again, they're a corporation. Just because every time Formula One wants to make a political statement, they don't make every political statement ever made, does not mean they cannot make political statements.
Can slide forever. Once you make yourself liable and personally responsible for every injustice in the world, there simply is no end.
They're not making themselves responsible for every injustice in the world. They're just saying that, like, how did we go from we should end racism and work towards better inclusion to I am responsible for all injustice? That's a big leap there. I don't think Formula One is saying that.
To it. Making the statement that your particular political agenda is the one that everybody must stand for and
If that political agenda is no longer being racist, then yes. Maybe I'm not being clear enough. Racism is bad. Being racist is wrong. The institutional discrimination that African Americans and black folk in the United States, in Europe, face is wrong and should worked towards fixing. If you don't think that, then yes, you're wrong.
openly speak in favor of is the pinnacle of narcissism. This is even before we
It is not narcissistic to hold a political opinion.
take into account that you belong to one of the most exclusive, nepotistic, and elitist clubs on planet Earth. A child that had to be born with a silver spoon in its mouth to even have a chance at attaining those, creating even more division in societies. Initiatives like this.
Is this just racism? Holy shit. Wait a minute. No, go through that again. No, please, go through that
Slide
again.
forever. Once you make yourself liable and personally responsible for every injustice in the world, there simply is no end to it. Making the statement that your particular political agenda is the one that everybody must stand for and openly speak in favor of is the pinnacle of narcissism. This is even before we take into account that you belong to one of the most exclusive, nepotistic, and elitist clubs on planet Earth. A child that had to be born with a silver spoon in its mouth.
All right, this might just be racism, because did Lewis Hamilton get lucky knowing Nico Rosberg? Yes. Did Lewis Hamilton get lucky in getting into Formula One? Yes. Lewis Hamilton was not born with a silver spoon in his mouth. A lot of F1 drivers are. Why am I looking at Lewis Hamilton right now? Why not Leclerc? Why not George Russell? Why not Perez? These drivers with, estates. The only reason that I can think of that I'm looking at Lewis Hamilton right now when he's saying born with a silver spoon in your mouth is because Lewis Hamilton is black and Lewis Hamilton is being uppity and he's talking about politics. That's the only thing I can think of. This is actually ridiculous. Like, sim racing and motorsport is about competition. Okay? He said it himself. It's about competition, and it's about the love of racing. Lewis Hamilton is arguably the best Formula One driver ever. He's smashing records. He was so far ahead last race at the Hungaroring 2020 that he was lapping up to the top 5. So to say that Lewis Hamilton was just born with a silver spoon in his mouth and he should be quiet is really, really weird.
To even have a chance at attaining those heights.
I did not think we were going there.
It transcends hypocrisy and starts to border on absurdism. One of the perverse things here is that, due to the tumultuous state of the world, many corporations are worried about their public face and appeasing vocal minorities. To that
Ew? I mean, yeah, but okay, at least in the United States, which I know isn't the biggest F1 demographic, BLM is extremely popular. It's not a vocal minority. And again, yes, corporations just do whatever makes them more money or whatever will give them the best ability to make more money.
To that end, drivers are being bullied into standing up for political motives that they may not actually support, simply to ensure continued sponsorship and a seat in F1.
Yes, that has been true forever. In fact, hold on. You know what? I'm gonna Google it. Hamilton Capper. Yeah, here we go. So this is from motorsport.com, pretty trusted website. Hamilton warned of consequences over Kaepernick F1 helmet plan. Here we go. I was advised from outside, from someone in the States who was really quite high up, that it wasn't time for me to do so. There were potential consequences for me doing it. So that's why they advised me not to do it. You want to talk about people being bullied into making political statements? This is it. This is Formula One telling Lewis Hamilton, you cannot wear a Kaepernick helmet because the states will not let you do it. There will be consequences. That is a threat. Not on Lewis's life, but certainly on his career. So, why did it click out of the video? So saying that these other drivers who did not kneel are being forced to make political statements is absurd. They didn't kneel, and they faced almost no consequences from the governing body, the FIA.
People watch motorsports because they love cars, competition, and the art of racing. They don't want to be lectured to about all the injustices in the world. They have the rest of their lives for that. Furthermore,
again, and gamers have a real problem with this too, but I guess I should just say it outright. You know who would really, really like to not have to deal with racism? Lewis Hamilton. Black athletes. Bubba Wallace. These people would probably love to not have to deal with racism. It's probably extremely exhausting to have to go through all of this shit. But until we do something about it, they're going to. This is important. If you don't like it, then stop watching. And if you're so invested in Formula One and its drivers, but you're not willing to listen to what they say or what Formula One has to say, and you'd rather just complain about it, like part of the thing is, right? If we go to this YouTube channel, and again, I like this stuff, like this one comparing AMS2 and Assetto Corsa's GT4. And all of this coverage of Automobilista, my computer can't run AMS2, so I'm watching him talk about it. But to get so upset about this, like, it would have been so much easier to just be upset about it and not make a video. But to go through the effort and to feel so strongly about it that you're like, no, you know what? I need to make a video on my sim racing channel about why Formula One is dumb and bad for saying racism should stop. I can't fathom it.
initiatives like this, in spite of their alleged intentions, often end up creating even more division in societies. Say you're a girl that grew up watching motorsport her entire life and loved the idea of standing there on the grid, looking amazing, hanging out in the VIP areas and being a part of the atmosphere of races. Well, too bad for you. That job opportunity is now gone.
What kind of art? You know, I've always wanted to be like a slave owner, right? When I was in school, I would read about these people and they got to stand tall, big whips, and just whoosh, make people work in order to make millions of. I've always wanted to do that. That would be so cool. There's a reason there's no grid girls, dude. This is not a good argument. You do not want to do this. Saying that Formula One is being political and it's making people upset and it's getting people fired, like, this is not a good argument.
For all the roles in F1 that the FIA is going to mandate equal outcomes for, how many characteristics will they subdivide for? 50-50 male and female? 33% light-skinned, 33% brown-skinned, and...
Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I said I only watched half the video, so all of the second half of the video is new. I thought this was just going to be keep your politics out of my motorsport. This is way worse. This is way, way worse than keep your politics out of my motorsport. Like, let's just go through that.
Say you're a girl that grew up watching motorsport F1 that the FIA is going to mandate equal outcomes for, how many characteristics will they subdivide for? 50-50 male and female? 33% light-skinned, 33% brown-skinned, and 33% dark-skinned? 50% straight and 50% queer? How many transgender? Equal outcome-oriented framework can be subdivided into infinity. There quite literally is no endpoint to the amount of pandering once it begins.
Okay, so the argument that he's making then is that Formula One, which is a competition, should not be focusing on creating equal outcomes because that way there's no, like, there's no merit. It's not a meritocracy. You've already pointed out that Formula One is not a meritocracy. Only the rich and those who are talented enough, like Lewis Hamilton, get to be in those positions. Lance Stroll, who's doing pretty okay nowadays, is only there because his father wanted his son to get an opportunity to be an F1 driver, and so now he owns a team. So to say, like, where does it end? Do we have to make a dick and vagina quota? Do we have to make a black and a white quota? Like, no, that's not what these things mean. If you think that's what that means, then what you're implicitly saying is that those other people don't have the merit to be in the sport. That the reason that women aren't in F1, the reason there aren't more black drivers and black crew members is because they don't have the merit, which we both know isn't true. So again, the idea is not to end racism completely. That's not what they're going to do. But they are probably going to take steps and make sure that, well, maybe more women get... Didn't they make a league? I know COVID, like, screwed everything up, but I'm pretty sure Formula W was supposed to be a feeder for F1 or for F2 to get women into F2 to get women into Formula 1. That isn't, we have to have 50% male and female F1 drivers. That's, let's give women an opportunity for those who want to be F1 drivers to be F1 drivers. Again, I don't know where we made the leap from a corporation saying a thing to a corporation literally mandating that half of its staff be black and half be white. I don't know where we made that leap, but Formula 1 didn't make it.
And imagine among all this, the amount of qualified, capable people that are going to be brickwalled simply because they don't meet.
Oh, I called it. Oh, I'm so smart. How did he know? Yeah, no, this is literally the, it's not called forced diversity. It's called something else. The, Title 9? Whatever. We'll just go with forced diversity right now. But it's that same argument that, like, college, you know, the smart white people are not getting into colleges because they have to forcibly diversify and are letting it. That's not how that works. Like, there's data out there to show that if you have a black name on a resume and a white name on a resume, the white name gets called more. There's data to show that, you know, including a picture that you're black versus not including a picture, that you're less likely to get it, the job interview, right? Like, it's actually, I actually feel so stupid for not knowing what this is called. Not forced diversity. What is it called? Affirmative action. Thank you. Thank you. Oh my goodness. I feel so stupid. Anyway, yeah, this is the affirmative action argument. This is the idea that that affirmative action harms white people because talented white people aren't getting into the colleges. When all affirmative action does is, if you have two people of equal merit, that you will more often, not every time, more often choose the black or minority person. And the reason for that is pretty simple. If you're a white kid like me, who grew up middle class like me, and went to a good school like me that was well funded, you didn't have to work very hard to get into college. If you were a black kid that went to a poor school and had to work really, really fucking hard and then got into a college, if your grades are the same as mine, I guarantee you that person probably worked harder. That's all it means. That's all it's there for. So this idea that, like, oh, you know, now that the Mercedes pit crew is half black, there's 40 German boys that no longer have jobs. That's not how this works, dude.
Meet some arbitrary racial or sexual quota for employment. Let me reiterate. Formula One is one of the most elitist institutions on planet Earth. It's an industry driven solely by the weight of finance, nepotism, and favor currying.
If you understand that Formula One is only driven by finance, how is this so hard for you to get through your head? That actually, women and minority groups have money now. Maybe we should start letting those people in so that they will buy, watch, and consume our content.
If there is a single platform more absurd to be bandying about the sentiment of #we race as one, I've yet to find it. Be sure to hit the sub to catch future racing news and commentary, as well as assorted.
Okay. So again, I'm just gonna leave it on this We Race as well, if I can find it. How long was it on the screen? What?
Sentiment of #we race as one.
There we go. Okay, so I guess this is such a dumb take. I guess what I'll say is this. If you don't want politics in Formula One, then you can just, I don't know, stop watching Formula One. I can't help you with the idea that because the only reason, by the way, that the Gamergate crowd was making the argument no politics in my video games wasn't because there was no politics in video games before. It's just that now there are politics they disagree with in video games. So in the same sense here, if you don't like that Formula One no longer has women as objects as being grid girls, if you don't like that Formula One is now looking into diversity programs because maybe there's only white boys and rich boys in Formula One, and maybe it would be cool to have some rich girls, I don't know. Like, if that's what you think is political, and that's what you have a problem with, then just go, because Formula One isn't going to stop. As long as minority groups keep getting more financially successful, and women groups keep getting more financially successful because of these programs, then companies are going to be more incentivized to cater to those groups. And again, if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. This was a really stupid take. It's a really dumb fuck argument. Like, and again, I don't understand why this person who has been putting out nothing but quality sim racing content for the past months has just decided to make this video. This video is terrible, and I don't think that the views expressed in it are very helpful. So yeah, I don't know what to say other than that. Like I said, this was not supposed to be a personal attack. I did not realize how bad it got, or how bad it was going to get. So if you enjoyed this, thank you for watching. Please leave a comment. I'll be reading the comments, and we can have a discussion there. And message me on Twitter. Ermin, if you want to talk about this, I'm totally willing to talk about it, but this is not okay. This cannot be a thing. You know, I don't have too many things that I'm super passionate about outside of, you know, my school work that I'm kind of deep into right now. But sim racing and Formula One and motorsports in general is one of them, and I do not want bigotry in those spheres. So that's all I got.